everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee movie Voyager class Thundercracker, one of the many Seekers that we see take on the Autobots in that epic opening Cybertron battle sequence, and I think this is one of the final members we needed to truly complete that Decepticon cast, along with an upscale version of Shockwave and maybe a Skywarp repaint. No one truly jumps to mind unless Hasbro wish to go completely obscure and give us the likes of a Cybertronian, Shatter and Dropkick, which personally I would love to see, as I think some of these Cybertronian characters are by far some of the best for the Studio Series. Now, as far as Thundercracker is concerned, this guy is an amalgamation of both Starscream and Thrust. He utilizes the Starscream body, yet the Thrust slash Blitzwing head sculpt, and done this time in blue and gunmetal grey. I actually think this is one of my favorite looking Seekers. This guy's just so cool. Now, as we take a closer look here at the details, you can see as far as that head is concerned, it's actually never looked better. Personally, I thought the Decepticons in that Bumblebee movie were back to being in full force. I really don't think they looked this great since that 2007 film. You can see as far as the sculpt work goes, that looks so nicely done with the breathing mask. You can see an amazing metallic silver as well as red used for the eyes, and the entire helmet, unlike Thrust, has been completely decked out in a very nice metallic slash glossy black, whereas on Thrust I believe it was just a matte finish. That looks so cool. Now, as we come around here to the wings, these are in fact slightly different when in comparison to both Starscream and Thrust. So they do face down like Thrust, yet the null rays face upwards. So I did like these subtle design changes just to make these Seekers distinctive from one another. It was really cool to see just how much detail they did put into these guys in the film, and I think as far as the design is concerned, this figure looks fantastic, as so did the design in the movie. You can see here for the null rays, sculpted very nicely, completely cast out of gunmetal grey, and you can see some of the colours from the vehicle mode, such as the red and white striping, which looks really nicely done. Now, as we come around here to the chest unit, you can see very nicely sculpted, loads of pistons, hydraulics, mechanical detail, literally from every single angle. There's something to look at on this guy. Even here from the top, you can see we've got the intakes, which have got a nice gunmetal coating, and even there for kind of the neck brace, that's been completely sculpted, looking terrific. Now, as we come down here to the arms, you can see these massive intake sections here. We've got a very nice red strip which goes over the top section of the bicep, and the mechanical detail where the inside of the arm is concerned just looks awesome with all of that tubing. Just so much sculpt work to admire, and I love the way how you actually have this outer paneling wrapped round the side section. Definitely does look how it did in the movie, very transformed, like these panels would actually collapse over the top of one another, and that's really what you're seeing here with this guy. As far as the finger sculpt is concerned, I think it's one of the best from the Studio Series. The sculpt work is, as always, impeccable. You can see even here from a side perspective, all of those individual segments for the fingers. That looks awesome. And then as we come down here to the legs, you can see two tones of grey, a lighter shade for the outer section, as well as gunmetal for the front. And the sculpt work for the mushroom pegs is just so cool. I actually haven't seen this on a Studio Series figure in a very long time. So they really did put a lot of care and attention into this guy. And I think overall, it made him look all the better for it. Now, as we come down here to the legs, these are slightly more bland when in comparison to the upper torso. They are primarily just cast out of blue plastic, but it's got a really nice metallic flake to it. Definitely doesn't look boring nor bland, and you can see these huge thrusters attached onto the side of the legs. I do wish this was a detail that we could have seen on their version of Blitzwing, but nevertheless, very nice sculpt work where that's concerned, and you can see a red strip which goes along the front section of the foot. Now, sadly, due to transformation and there being minimal clearance, 9 times out of 10, the edges will in fact actually chip. I wish this was something they were able to perfect on this mold, as I believe this was an issue that we also saw on Thrust, but I guess it is what it is. There's not really much we can do, sadly. And then as we come around here to the back, this has got to be some of the coolest paint I've seen for one of these Tetrajets so far. The white detailing just looks awesome, as so does these Decepticon insignias. Now, we'll of course be sure to touch base with these when we actually get him transformed up, but that looks so cool. As far as articulation is concerned, Thundercracker does have a ball joint here at the head, which allows him to look left to right, up and down very slightly. Full rotation here at the shoulders, hinge out to the side, rotation at the bicep, as well as a way past 90-degree bend at the elbow, only on a single hinge joint. Due to transformation, the hands can collapse forwards and backwards. We do get a full waist rotation, and this piece can also hinge forwards to accommodate for a much more dynamic range. The legs can kick forwards that far, as well as back to that far out to the side, rotation at the thigh, as well as a slightly past 90-degree bend here at the knee. knee, and finally due to transformation they can pivot forwards and backwards slightly, however have an amazing range where it comes to the outward range of motion. That is so nicely done. So definitely overall, as far as the robot mode is concerned, one of my favorite looking Seekers. I think the blue looks awesome, and I just think as far as the mold is concerned, it's wicked. Now Thundercracker does include one accessory, that being this triple barreled Gatling gun. Considering he's a repaint, it would have been super cool to have actually included kind of this rifle that Soundwave had in the film. I do believe we actually see Thundercracker using a gun like this very briefly before Bumblebee comes and smashes him from behind, but that definitely would have been a really nice inclusion. But as it stands, the null ray doesn't look too bad. You can see metallic blue there for the top, as well as that same gunmetal here for the missiles, as well as for the main barrel. And personally, I never really had an issue with Starscream or Thrust holding the weapon. I know that some did, however, but here on Thundercracker, it's just as tight as those previous two figures. It really doesn't feel as if though it's going to go anywhere unless you actually want to remove it. Now, as we turn to some size comparisons, here we have Thundercracker compared alongside the Bumblebee movie version of Soundwave, and I really just wanted to focus on the differences in regards to the color of blue. You can see Soundwave is a lot darker, more deeper when in comparison to the more vibrant scheme that we're seeing here for Thundercracker. So for those of you who own this guy, you'll know kind of what to expect in regards to the blue used here for this guy. Both looking fantastic, really cool Decepticon designs, and I just think paired alongside one another, this is definitely what I'm hoping to see in Rise of the Beasts. Here he is alongside Starscream, and to go back to my earlier point in regards to the orientation of the wings, I really did like the subtle differences between all of them. You can see how it actually creates for quite a drastic look when in comparison to Starscream. Now out of the two, I think just in terms of an overall mold, I much prefer Thundercracker. I think this head sculpt for Starscream would have been so much cooler when in comparison to what we actually got. Now not to take anything away from this, it's very accurate to the film, but as we just bring both of them in here for a closer look, am I going crazy, or does this Thundercracker head sculpt actually fit Starscream a little better when in comparison to what we saw here? There's just something rather troll-like about this, and that is something I hope they improve upon if we ever see this guy back on screen. But definitely really cool looking repaints of one another. For those of you who don't like Starscream or Thrust, then you're still not going to like Thundercracker, but in terms of a visual perspective, I think the colorization is much nicer here for this guy. And here for one final comparison, we have Thundercracker compared alongside Thrust, both sharing the same wing orientation. However, when it comes down to the null rays, of course, these are inversed. And as we take a closer look here, the head sculpt's exactly the same, although here for Thrust we did have a more matte finish when in comparison to the glossy black. Definitely be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, out of all three of these Seekers, which is your personal favourite. I really do think Thundercracker takes the win for me. Destroy the launch pad, let none escape! Now, as we turn to transformation here for Thundercracker, it's exactly the same as the previous two. So to begin with, you'll want to detach the null rays and just set them here off to the side. We can then come to these wings and just detach those, hinge these panels down, and of course, rinse and repeat here for this side. You'll then want to take these awesome hydraulic sections, just take those and compress them into the cavities. And the same can also be said here for the hands. So just snap them there into place and rotate at the bicep so that the front is now facing the back, as this will actually prepare for a later step. You'll then want to come down here to the legs, hinge this section out, get this out of the way, and then this tab will actually peg into a slot on the side of the hip, so hinge this up and over. You'll then want to take this panel, collapse this down, and then the foot will compress into this cavity. And to go back to my earlier point, you can see there is barely any clearance, meaning that it's going to be pretty inevitable that some of that paint sadly does become scratched. You'll then want to take this section, hinge this out, come to this side, and rinse and repeat. So just hinge this section up and over, snap that into place, fold this down, take the foot, hinge that in there. You'll then want to make sure that this is fully pushed in, as we're going to rotate the legs in upon themselves, and then the wings will also collapse here just like this. You'll then want to take the entire canopy, which actually houses the head, and disengage it from the main cockpit. That will free up this entire region so that we can essentially flip him, much like the transformation in the movie. So you can literally have these guys going and transforming, and once you complete that step, you can certainly see how the Tetrajet is going to take form. You'll then want to hinge these out to the side, take the nose cone, and this actually does snap in very securely, so just click that in there. Straighten the nose cone out, and what will happen is that this head will hinge upwards, and now these pieces will kind of wrap over the top. Now you'll notice here on the underside we do have some slots that these tabs will peg into. So what I would recommend doing would be to overlap these just like this, then combine the two halves, and now hopefully snap that there into place. So this is how the jet should be looking so far. What you'll then want to do is come here to the underside, tab these sections here together. We can then come to the shoulders, hinge those up, disengage those, bring these sections in, and rinse and repeat the same process here for this side. And then the elbows will actually bend downwards to fill out this hollow cavity. And then for some finishing touches, take the wings, ratchet these sections down, and now you'll actually want to conceal these two pieces. Now 9 times out of 10 they'll more than likely become detached. They really don't have a good grip of one another, but they are supposed to overlap so that you're left with something like this. And then we'll bring back in his accessories, and you'll just want to peg the null rays into these slots and do the same here for this side. And then finally take this massive cannon, and it will peg here into the front with these two tiny tabs pegging into these slots as well. And with all that being said, here we have Thundercracker fully transformed up into his Cybertronian Tetrajet alt mode, and in my opinion, looking awesome. I personally have always massively rated this mold. I think it looks super accurate to the movie, and as far as the jet mode is concerned, very identical to some of the CGI designs. Now, as we bring him in here for a closer look, undeniably, in my opinion, the most visually interesting Seeker out of the bunch, especially when it comes down to the details here on the wings. This just looks so cool. You can see all of those white stripes picking out some of the sharper details of the sculpt. We've got those Decepticon insignias, some really nice throwback cues to the original G1 design, such as the red and white striping here for the wings. We've got this massive red nose cone with a nice null ray sculpted in there at the front. Once again, would have much rather had this been a darker yellow to better match the original series, but nevertheless, you can see as we come up here to the top, a really nice mix of the grey and blue. I think these look great next to one another. You can see here on the underside, he's definitely packing in regards to firepower. We've got this massive cannon, two null rays here along the side. We've got this huge wing piece, which too has also been detailed very nicely, and I think I've just dropped the gun. And of course, these massive thrusters at the back. So overall, definitely a really nice Seeker in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. So now let's turn to some size comparisons. Here we have Thundercracker compared alongside both Starscream and Thrust, and despite all three being pretty much identical in terms of molding here for the alt mode, I really do think they look very distinctive due to the colour scheme, and at least in my opinion, Thundercracker truly looks the coolest, especially when it comes down to the detailing on the wings. And so, some final thoughts for the Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee movie Voyager class Thundercracker. Overall, as far as the repaint is concerned, I think this guy looks great. He's actually my favourite out of all three. I think the mix of kind of both of them in the robot mode looks fantastic. They've taken the Thrust head sculpt, yet the Starscream body, combined them together to create what is, in my opinion, the ultimate look for the Seeker. I really do wish that this was the design that we saw for Starscream, especially where that head sculpt is concerned. I think as far as the colours go, really visually interesting. Those bright blues, those red accents, as well as the white paint really do complement each other very nicely. I think both bot and jet mode look fantastic, and when it comes to jet mode, out of all three, Thundercracker definitely takes the cake. This guy looks awesome. However, if you're not a fan of Starscream or any of the previous Cybertronian Seekers, then I still don't think this guy is going to sway you to actually pick him up. Whilst he looks fantastic, he is the exact same mold, so if you're not a fan of the Tetrajet, then I still don't think you're going to like it here. And if I were to be super critical, considering this guy is merely just a simple repaint, I personally would have loved for them to have repackaged that Soundwave rifle, as that is a weapon that we actually see him very briefly use in the Bumblebee movie. All that being said, however, if you are a fan of all of the Bumblebee movie Decepticons, you want to complete your cast, then this definitely isn't a bad pickup, and if anything, would actually be one of the coolest out of the entire line. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Is this a figure you guys plan on adding to the collection? And as always, please feel free to let me know your thoughts on the review down in the comment section below. I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.